I'd always thought that no one could say it better than Paulo Coelho does in one of my favorite books, The Alchemist. When you want something, all the universe conspires in helping you achieve it. Over the last 2 years, I've learned the hard way that the universe doesn't really care what you want, it knows what you need. I'd always thought the whole everything happens for a reason bit was cheesy and almost painfully naive. But over the past few years, this universal truth has affected me so deeply and so personally that I have no other choice than to be on board. This is my story of how a dream deferred has turned into one of the greatest blessings in my young life. The dream of deep aromatic red wines, wonky cobblestone streets, and proximity to some of the world's most charming beach towns had drawn me to Bordeaux, France for years. It almost seemed like it was only fate that UCSB offered a study abroad program through the University of Bordeaux, also conveniently fitting with my major. Fully equipped with a minor in French, premature plans to get friends and family to visit, and numerous French lofts saved on my computer desktop, I was all too determined and all too prepared for my semester across the Atlantic. When the COVID alarms were set off and echoing around the world during the spring of my freshman year, the possibility of never calling the French countryside home didn't even really occur to me. Sure, I'd probably have to wait another semester or two, but a little extra time in Isla Vista wouldn't hurt, and my French would be even better when the time came to move. That wishful thinking was chipped away piece by piece as recurrent lockdowns and travel restrictions pushed my suitcase further and further back into my closet. The world kept spinning, so I kept myself moving forward. I completed my sophomore year shifting from Isla Vista to my hometown, from morning surfs to afternoon Zooms, from loneliness to confusion about the direction my life was going in. If the world couldn't even decide how best to move on from the pandemic, how could I? It felt as if I were left in constant limbo, unable to go out and adventure, while still unable to remain content with where I was at, simply floating. Still no Bordeaux plans in sight. However, my purpose was thrown at me with a force I wasn't prepared to withstand the summer before my junior year. I was hired as a digital marketing intern where I worked in the office from 9 to 5, Monday through Thursday, in addition to working events most weekends. The lifestyle was fast paced and at times grueling, but I had never loved doing anything more. The sense of pride and competence at successfully executing projects, the close relationships and friendships I made with coworkers, and the love I had for my work and for the mission of the brand all came together, making me realize that I was exactly where I was supposed to be. No other job or career path would satisfy me. By some trick of beautiful fate, I was offered a position with the company at the end of my internship, in which I was able to both continue my education and work my dream job. If it weren't for my sacrifice of a few months of merely gallivanting around Europe, I would have returned to the States with that same sense of lack of direction and confusion about the future that I used to have. My dream job would have been someone else's reality. It was the first week of August that my mother lowered herself into her bed, feeling a slight cold coming on. I wish I could say that now, 8 months later, she's gotten herself up, laughed as loud as she once used to, and once again found that beautiful optimism for life and all of its little blessings that everyone knew and loved her for. But once again, my wishful thinking was chipped away piece by piece as the weeks and months passed, as lab and EKG results continuously left dark clouds looming over our household, and as the future of my family became more and more uncertain. Despite countless doctor and specialist visits, trial and error of far too many cures and new medications, it took several agonizing months for us to receive a definitive diagnosis. My mom was diagnosed with leukemia, nerve damage in her brain, and ongoing symptoms of long haul COVID. With such strenuous caretaking and emotional support being necessary to help my mom make it through each day, it became very clear that I needed to move home from Isla Vista and care for the woman who had once raised and cared for me. Being only a 4-hour drive down the coast and with virtual school, I was able to move back and provide the necessary support and caretaking for my mother. The months that I lived at home caring for my mother and taking on her role in maintaining the household and taking care of my brother and father were the most exhausting, heartbreaking, and worrisome times that I will probably ever have to face. While my heart continued to break each and every morning that I would wake up and see my mother seemingly dwindled and vacant of the spirit of the woman that I love more than anything, it is nothing compared to the feelings of guilt, helplessness, and pain I would have felt if I weren't by her side through it all. A 12-hour flight from Bordeaux would have been an entirely different story, leaving my family struggling for help and lacking in unity, while leaving me abroad and alone, feeling levels of guilt that I can't even bring myself to imagine. I can feel my heart sinking now at the thought of being so far away from the person I love most during a time in which suffering and terrifying uncertainty is all they can see or feel. While I will never bring myself to say that my mother's suffering and the heartache my family continues to endure is the intention of the universe that I believe to be benevolent, I do know that I was meant to remain close to my mother and to my family during these surreal and overwhelming times. If I were to have gone to Bordeaux and lived out my dream of studying abroad, I would have never found my passion, landed my dream job, or been able to care for those I love the most during the most critical of times. The dreams that we have and the things that we deem to be best for us are nearly always mocked by the universe, as it brings into light our true life paths and presents us with unique yet pivotal opportunities. Instead of worrying ourselves over a dream deferred or a seemingly insurmountable obstacle, it is of paramount importance that we remember that everything happens for a reason. This, I believe wholeheartedly. Thank you.